Okay, in the music industry section this month, I want to talk about the variety of gigs that are out there for drummers. And, it's kind of funny, drummers are kind of looked down on at times, but the ironic thing is that there's possibly more opportunities, or at least a wider variety of playing opportunities for drummers than there is for possibly any other instrument. I mean, drums can play, in original bands, whether it's jazz, rock, Latin bands, the same thing with cover and corporate bands in all of those styles. You can do, cruise ships, international hotel contracts, theatre tours, rock tours, festival circuits. There's tons of things you can do as a drummer. Not to mention you can play in symphonic, ensembles as well. Sometimes they need a drum kit player. And you can also teach the drums because it's a popular instrument. A lot of people want to learn. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for a drummer, and you might be at a stage in your playing, where you want to start playing semi-professionally or professionally. And I'm now going to go through and talk about the different sort of scenes and circuits that are out there that you can get work in and that I've got work in, and it's all definitely very possible. So let's start with just original music. Okay, original music is obviously music that you have written or that your band has written, that you want to get copyrighted. And the thing with an original band is, don't go into an original band, or my advice is don't go into an original band with the mentality that we've got to make a lot of money up front. Because an original band is something where you've got to stick it out, you've got to get your songs together, you've really got to develop them, and that's a lot of fun. And you've got to develop a following, because obviously venues and promoters can't afford to pay you well if no one shows up to your gigs. So with an original band, stick it out, and over the months and the years, if you do get a big following and you might get a record deal and so on, original music is where the big money is made. Okay, so it's one of those things where you start out with practically nothing. You might do gigs even for free or for peanuts, making enough money to get petrol to drive yourself home, but down the track maybe you might stick it out and land it big. And I'm not talking necessarily about being as big as like U2 or Sting or something like that. Even on a national level, or even just big in your city, you can do well out of original music. The next thing to talk about, if you're wanting, from a money point of view, if you're wanting something perhaps more consistent and better paid more often, you might want to get a cover band together, or a corporate band. Now, cover means you're covering someone else's songs. You're playing other people's songs. So you're playing, famous songs, and a typical cover band might be a top 40 cover band. But they might also play, as well as top 40 hits, in the charts at the moment. You might play some 90s rock, you might play some retro songs from the 70s and 80s, and you might even play some old rock and roll stuff from, the 50s and 60s. Totally up to you. And within that, you have, you can have even sort of concept bands where you might have a particular theme for your band. You might have a tribute show, like a Beatles or a Bee Gees tribute show, something like that. That's all part of it as well. And a corporate band is a similar kind of thing. You're still playing other people's songs, famous songs, but perhaps more as a bit more of an upmarket act. So rather than playing maybe in pubs and clubs, you might be playing more in functions, maybe some major events, weddings, things like that perhaps. So yeah, and corporate gigs should definitely pay well, as well as cover gigs, because corporations are hiring you to play, so they should definitely pay well. From there, you can take a corporate band or, remarket your cover band and go and do an international 5-star hotel contract. And these contracts typically are around 3 to 6 months, or perhaps even longer. There are some short 1 and 2 week stints out there, but they're definitely a lot less common. And it's where you go to places like Asia and the Middle East, and in fact all over the world, but they are big markets, Asia and the Middle East, and you play 5, 6, 7 nights a week. And it's a good opportunity to see another country, first of all. The second thing is your flights and your accommodation and your food, your 3 meals a day, that's all paid for by the hotel, or at least it should be, and you want to make sure it is in the contract before you sign. And that means that you're able to pocket a lot of the money that you're earning from the gig, because obviously on top of that you're getting a performance fee, and it gives you a chance to see the world or see a country and put some money aside. So it's like a paid holiday in a sense. And yes, you will get sick of playing every night or 6 nights a week, playing similar sort of stuff, but when you put it in perspective, it's not a bad deal at all. So I recommend doing that. And if you're a top 40 cover band, it might just be a matter of, changing your band's image a bit, perhaps not being so rock and grungy. You're more likely to be wearing suits, and that kind of dress when you're doing a 5-star hotel contract. And also you want to check your song list, your repertoire. You need to make sure that the songs that you're playing are big hits internationally and not just, you know, the songs that are popular in your particular country. I know when we did our contract in China, we had to really change things as far as that's concerned. Another way to see the world is to do a cruise ship contract. And again, your flights, your accommodation, your food's all paid for, and you're getting paid on top of that. So it's another opportunity to put some money aside because you're out of the rat race. You know, you don't have all these bills necessarily back home. You might have some, but you know, you're temporarily out of the rat race, so you can save some money. And you're also going and seeing a new place every day or every second day. And that's fantastic. I mean, I did a cruise ship around Europe for about 4 or 5 months, and I think we went to something like 20, 25 countries, and within each country we went to a number of places. And so it's a thing of you wake up every day and you look out the window and you're in a new country. And, you know, you play at night time typically, unless you're doing, say, you know, a Latin by the pool set. And that means that if you're playing from 6 p.m. onwards, with the onboard caller being at 6 p.m, you can spend that whole day going out and seeing the place that you're in. And that's fantastic. That, you know, you can't imagine how much it would cost if you actually did the same thing but had to pay your way. When you do a cruise ship, you know, you're seeing exactly the same thing but not having to pay, you're getting paid. So it's definitely worth doing, particularly if you can score a cruise contract that has a really large itinerary. You might get sick of it if you do an itinerary that just goes back and forth doing the same 14-day cruise time after time. You want to try and get a wide itinerary if you can. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about would be a theatre show tour. And they can be national tours. I'm talking about professional theatre here, which is kind of hard to break into, but if you can, it's definitely worth doing. National tours, and sometimes they take, you know, the bands overseas, and they might do, you know, I know in Australia at least, some shows go over to Hong Kong and Singapore and a few other places, Kuala Lumpur, and do stints over there as well. Again, you're not paying for anything and you're getting paid, and it's just all of these gigs, these contracted, the last three, the cruise, the hotel and the theatre. Apart from the money side of which isn't everything, you're getting great playing experience. And bear in mind though, with the cruise ships and the shows, you need to be able to read music, and particularly the cruise ship. You know, it's fantastic for getting your sight reading together because you'll have guest artists come on every cruise, which means every 14 days or every 10 to 14 days, and you might get one rehearsal and then bang, you've got to play their show that night, and you can't stuff it up because then you make them look really bad. So it's just great for your playing as well. So if you want to check out how to actually get any of these gigs, go to icanplaydrums.com/moregigs.htm. I've written an ebook on it. I've put everything I can think of into it about the music industry, and also go into other things like endorsements, how to get them, and the money side of it, you know, as far as tax and so on, and running your band as a business. There's a lot of stuff in there. So if you're interested, check that out. But otherwise, you know, I'd really recommend that you try one thing at a time. Don't think, or don't take the scatterbrain approach like I used to, where you think, okay, I'm going to have an original band and a cover band, and then I'm going to do a cruise, and then I'm going to do a theatre tour, and then a 5-star hotel. You know, just stick to something, and it won't happen straight away. But you know, just put a bit of time and effort into it, and some careful planning, and all these gigs are definitely possible.